And now we have finally completed the Red Ribbon Army arc of OG Dragon Ball, so I can finally talk about it. Now, you're seeing Season 3 here, rather than me fishing out Seasons 1 and 2 as well, because mainly the Red Ribbon Army arc is just so long that it does encompass all three of them. Colonel Silver, who is part of the Red Ribbon Army, the very first person that Goku meets from this unit, shows up in, I believe, the final episode of OG Dragon Ball Season 1. And of course, the entirety of Season 2 is Goku taking out Colonel Silver, Colonel White, General White from the Muscle Tower, and of course General Blue and the Arale business. And then Season 3 picks up with Commander Red sending Tao Pai Pai to take out Goku, then Goku training with Master Korin, taking out Tao Pai Pai, taking out the Red Ribbon Army HQ base, and then going to Baba's tournament to go through Baba's little challenge in order to find the location of the final Dragon Ball, where he would then take out the Pilaf gang, and then go pick up Upa and do all of that stuff. We're going to get into all of that. But all of that takes place, that second part takes place in Season 3. A lot of people like to split up the Red Ribbon Army arc, because it's just so big. Like, the Baba Tournament arc feels completely removed from the Red Ribbon Army arc, because Goku had already taken out Commander Red and all the Red Ribbon Army guys by the time he does this. But it's more how the story is told. The story begins with Goku going off on a second Dragon Ball hunt to find the 4-star ball that belonged to his grandfather. It's the only memento he has to remember him by. And it ends with Goku collecting all of the Dragon Balls and making a wish upon the Dragon Ball. And we'll talk about all of that stuff, but all of that happens after the Baba arc. He makes the wish after the Baba tournament arc, and the reason why he makes this wish happens during the Red Ribbon Army arc with the Tao Pai Pai business. All of that stuff is all one connected story. The story is removed enough from the 21st World Martial Arts Tournament, and it is removed from the 22nd World Martial Arts Tournament. While the 22nd World Martial Arts Tournament does feature elements that happened during the Red Ribbon Army arc that connected, all of it does contain elements that connected. That's how a story is told, but each story is told in segments and certain sagas and certain things like that. So I consider the Red Ribbon Army arc to begin with Goku leaving the tournament to go collect the balls, and ends after he makes the wish upon the balls. And if we're going by that lengthened story, then the Red Ribbon Army arc is probably by far one of the absolute longest arcs in Dragon Ball. It encompasses the second half of Volume 5 all the way to the first half of Volume 10. It is a very long bit, and to compare the first two arcs of Dragon Ball, the Pilaf arc and the World of Martial Arts, the 21st Tournament arc, contain the first 4 volumes and part of the 5th. You're looking at, basically, if we're going to call the half of this one and half of this one a full one, then I could just remove one of these, and this tells you how many books are in the Red Ribbon Army arc in total. That's 5 of the 16 volumes is the Red Ribbon Army arc. And to explain to you what's going on here, after Volume 10, we have to go through the 22nd World Martial Arts Tournament, we have to go through King Piccolo, and we have to go through the 23rd World Martial Arts Tournament. That's 3 more arcs that need 6 books to tell the rest of the story. And this is all the Red Ribbon. This is by far the longest arc in this first portion of early Dragon Ball. And it's one of my favorites. It's probably it's either my first or second favorite. I always tie these between the Pilaf arc. I can't decide whether the Pilaf arc or the Red Ribbon Army arc are the best arcs of Dragon Ball to me. And if I'm going by nostalgia, then obviously I'm going to say anime-wise, the Pilaf arc is the best one, because it's the one that I grew up on. It's the one that I have all of the VHS tapes on. I've watched them tons and tons of times. I loved the story. It's a wacky adventure. All of the jokes are great. I didn't get many of the adult ones as a kid. I get them as an adult, and I laugh at them. It is a beloved story to me. But if I'm going to be more objective, then I would definitely have to say that the Red Ribbon Army arc is probably the best arc, and the best story for Goku in the entirety of this franchise. Goku goes through some genuine character growth here, and we definitely get to learn more about who he is as a person throughout this entire Red Ribbon Army adventure. And what better way to say this? I wrote down a little piece that I do want to read out. I normally never read off scripts. I may do it for a handful of older videos. I wrote this that I do want to discuss. Now we're going to begin here with, quote, Goku began this journey as an innocent monkey kid in the wilderness that Bulma found and introduced into the rest of the world. He followed her around mostly because he didn't know anything else or where else to go, and mostly because she was basically bossing him around to get his Dragon Ball. It was a glorious Dragon Ball hunt. It was a fantastic little story. And then he meets up with the invincible old master who taught his grandfather, finding in him a surrogate father figure who taught him about life and what it meant to live it well. He went back out there on another journey, not only to make a wish, not to make a wish on the Dragon Balls, but to find his grandpa's 4-star ball, the only thing he had left to remember it by. And he ended up getting caught in the schemes of the Red Ribbon Army, because they are also off to the Dragon Balls, on yet another fantastic and wacky series of adventures. And a lot of these can be broken up into small parts, like the Muscle Tower segment is removed from the General Blue segment, and then the Tao Pai Pai segment is removed from the General Blue segment. Each one are mini arcs in between an over-encompassing saga, right? And after most of these wacky adventures, he ends up meeting Upa and Bora, a son and father living in under the watchful eye of Karin Tower. The father found the 4-star ball, and Goku's selfless acts in saving Upa from the Red Ribbon Army arc earned him his grandfather's Dragon Ball. But then things take a very dark turn when Tao Pai Pai, hired by Commander Red to kill Goku, ends up killing Bora, who felt obligated to protect Goku out of a debt he owed to him for saving his son. Goku promised Upa that he would give up his grandpa's Dragon Ball so that he could make a wish on the dragon to wish his father back to life. And because of that selfless act and sacrifice, he ended up reunited with his actual grandfather at the end of his journey. Every time Goku meets Grandpa Gohan at the end of the Baba Tournament arc, I get so emotional. Reading it, watching it, it is honestly one of the best moments in this entire franchise to me. And it is one of the core components of what makes Goku such a beloved character to so many people. It's not that the English dub made him into a blind hero Superman copycat clone or anything like that. It's that at the beginning he was mostly a neutral kid who didn't know any better, but it's that innocence about him and how he could forge genuine friendships with just about anybody. That selflessness at the end, where he gives up the one thing that he was always treasuring. He was so protective of that Dragon Ball, he wouldn't let Bulma touch it during the entire Pilaf arc. He wouldn't let Bulma touch it. He gives it up to bring back the father of a child he had just met that day. He just met him, and he was going to do that for him. He was going to help him out. And that selfless act, he was going to give up his grandfather's Dragon Ball. It ends in Grandpa Gohan finally getting to see Goku. They reunite. They have a fight, the Masked Fighter versus Goku. It is so good. So good. I honestly think it's better in the manga than it is in the anime. The fight, especially, is a lot better than the manga. But it's still, when Gohan takes off that mask and Goku sees him, and he runs up to him and gives him a big old hug, and he's saying he looked everywhere for him, and he wondered what happened to him, and he has to be reminded that Gohan is dead. He's got a halo over his head, and Baba just let him come back for a day because Gohan asked her in the afterlife if she ever foresaw Goku coming to see her, that she'd bring him back for that day so that they could reunite. And it was one of the most emotional moments to me as an enjoyer of this franchise. I got into Dragon Ball after Z, like most people in America. I got into Z first, and then I got into Dragon Ball. And of course, a lot of the actions in Z were emotional, like Vegeta's sacrifice in the Majin Buu arc, or Piccolo's sacrifice of the Saiyan arc. But this one right here hit me more than all of those other ones. It really did. It's layered. There's so many layers to that level of storytelling that I don't think Toriyama ever got that good at it again. And that's not a fault on him. It's just that this was just that good that it's very hard to bring that type of power back after getting it right the first time, And I love this entire franchise. I do. It's just this moment for me makes the Red Ribbon Army arc my favorite story in this entire franchise, in the manga form, especially. If I'm gonna play favorites, anime form, the Pilaf Saga is my favorite over the Red Ribbon Army arc. Manga form, the Red Ribbon Army arc is better than the Pilaf arc to me. It's just simple truths here. They're both fantastic, but this story, it needs to be told, And of course, once again, we're going to talk about how the artwork with Toriyama and his love for vehicles. Every time we see these one-off little drawings that Toriyama does, most of the time he's always showing a vehicle off. He wants to draw a new vehicle. He's got this little motorcycle here on this one here. He's got these two vehicles here. He's got Bulma on this motorcycle here. He's got Oolong driving this, Roshi driving this vehicle here. For the first time, we don't have a vehicle on this one. We do have a really nice-looking fantasy creature lizard thing that he's driving around on this one. But then we go back to another vehicle here. Toriyama and vehicles. I can't stress this enough, how big of a fan he was of vehicles and drawing them. He was always drawing them, all the time. In almost all of these chapter one-offs. Like, let me look through a couple of these, like I did last time. Let's look through a couple of these. Near the back, of course. We go to the back here, to the title page gallery, right? We see another vehicle here. Right here, another one, a little aircraft. Another one here, aircraft. Pretty good designs. I like that one. Like, none of these aircrafts are shown. Most of these aren't. Here's another one. Goku never drives this, but he drew this in this cool little snow vehicle. Yeah, and there's another thing that makes Muscle Tower so interesting, so fascinating to me, especially the Red Ribbon Army arc in general. Goku goes everywhere in this arc. He's never gone to as varied of many locations ever since this arc. He goes around the world, and Toriyama draws different environments, different biomes, different climates in every single arc. In the Colonel Silver arc, admittedly, he barely does anything with Colonel Silver. That's one thing that I will give over the anime, is that Colonel Silver gets expanded into his own little arc. He's got about a 4 or 5 episode little mini arc that is almost entirely filler, which is very fascinating at the time, because filler normally gets limited to like single episodes by this point in early Dragon Ball. Most filler is taken care of in that one episode, because it's, like I've mentioned before, that multiple studios were working on multiple episodes at the same time, and there probably wasn't too much discussion over what they were going to do with the next episode. But this one bit for Colonel Silver, in Volume 5, we do have Goku taking out Colonel Silver roughly around here. Break time here. Chapter 55, Red Ribbon. It's just chapter 55, and at the end of chapter 55, we have Colonel Silver taking on Goku, but then after like 2 pages, he's already on his way to Muscle Tower. After a couple pages after the next chapter, he's already on his way. That's very quick. It's just 2 chapters for Colonel Silver. That's it, 2 chapters. They expand that to about 5 episodes. 3 of those episodes are dedicated to a little filler series between Goku, Ox King and Chi-Chi, and Colonel Silver, and even Emperor Pilaf comes back for like a 3-way for a Dragon Ball. And then at the end, that Colonel Silver finally ends up finding and giving to Commander Red. This is the first Dragon Ball that Commander Red ends up finding. This is that first one that he has at the by the time he shows the Dragon Balls to Tao Pai Pai. He says, "This is what the Dragon Ball looks like." They only had 1 Dragon Ball at that time, and they finally show us what 1 Dragon Ball that was. And Colonel Silver found the first one. And it was that 3-way with Pilaf and his big flying machine. I loved that. It's so stupid, and it makes Colonel Silver out to be far more deadly than he ends up actually being, of course, because by the time Goku actually ends up fighting Colonel Silver, he takes him out of like one to 2 hits, and that's the joke, is that he does this with General White as well. He takes him out really easily. But I like this. I really liked they expanded him a little bit, because they gave us older characters in a little lighthearted little 3-for-all. And of course, I love the Pilaf gang. The Pilaf gang are fantastic. As many times as I get to see them, so long as they're not doing something stupid that completely ruins the story and completely hinders the canon part of the story, I don't mind getting to see them whenever I can. So that little bit was really good. And then after the Colonel Silver arc moves from forest to a desertish biome, and then when he goes to Muscle Tower, it's in a snow biome. And that's something that I want to mention with Toriyama and snow. I don't think Toriyama likes the cold. I really don't think so. And in fact, I think he even made a little mention about not liking the cold. Usually in these little opening segments, at the opening bit here, he has something he would usually say about not liking the cold. I can't remember which book it was. I really can't. And maybe it's book 5. Let me take a look. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but if I can't... here we go. Volume 5. I've mentioned this many times before, but I really hate the cold. If you turn on the heater, your head feels like it's in a daze. And if you turn it off, your hands get numb from the cold and you can't even hold your pen properly. When it gets cold, I stop riding my bicycle. And I only go places by car. Frankly, I'm just not that much of a cycling enthusiast. Oh, I just want to hibernate. Spring, hurry up and get here. Every winter's day, I long for you to come. Akira Toriyama, 1987. And that's kind of a little joke that I like to bring up, is that Toriyama hates the snow. He hates the cold. The one time that he ever shows the snow biome he keeps bringing up Goku hating the cold, and then we are immediately out of the snow biome, and we never come back to the cold areas. We never come back to the snow. We never see it again in the entire franchise, and that is interesting to me. It really is. But we go from the snow biome, from General White's Muscle Tower, into tropics. We go into the tropics with palm trees and islands with General Blue, and we go after pirate treasure. And as unlikely as it was for that Dragon Ball to be where it ended up being in the anime, it does sound a little bit likely that the ball could fall into the ocean, fall through a little rift in the ground, and end up at the bottom of a well in a pirate cave that can only be accessed through this whole mystical pirate adventure thing. I loved the whole bit of the General Blue. Was a fantastic character, and I often like to make references between the Red Ribbon Army and the Frieza Force, and I'm going to be doing that again when I get to the Frieza arc, because I'm going to be going through Dragon Ball Z. Yeah, we're going to be doing Dragon Ball Z. I'm going to go through all of OG Dragon Ball and all of Dragon Ball Z. When I get to the Frieza arc, we're going to be talking about how the comparisons for the Frieza forces are connected to the Red Ribbon Army arc, and how General Blue and Zarbon are essentially the same character. I love General Blue. He's a fantastic villain. He's very kooky, creepy, funny. At least the manga form. They make him a little bit creepier in the anime. That I disagree with that character choice for him. Whatever he was in this one was fine. He made it mostly as a joke. Let me find it. Is it in Volume 6 or is it in Volume... it's in Volume 7. In Volume 7 here, we have Goku and company going into the pirate treasure. Bulma, she's currently fighting with Yamcha about something, and in the anime we finally actually learn what that fight is. And of course, both the anime and the manga take Yamcha's side, and both of them, Bulma's parents even, they all take Yamcha's side and say, oh, Yamcha's a pretty boy, he's obviously gonna have girls come after him. Yamcha's afraid of women, so he's too scared to say no. He's just trying to hide in a corner or something, and Bulma hates the fact that women find him attractive. She hates it. She can't stand that fact, and she blames him for it. So she yells at him, and Yamcha has no idea what's going on. He has no idea why she's yelling at him. Oolong and Puar are taking his side, obviously, and it's just a fantastic little... So... Oh, man, I feel so sorry for Yamcha, I really do. Bulma was a little shallow here, but what can you expect? She's the heiress to a multi-trillion-dollar capsule corporation. She's the daughter of the richest man in the world. She lives like a princess. She could go wherever. She could just quit school and just run off and take adventures with Goku for Dragon Balls whenever she wants. Nobody's gonna stop her. Her parents don't stop her. The parents own the fucking city. You know, it's crazy. It really is. But Bulma finds General Blue to be attractive, and there's a joke that Toriyama does. It's just for a joke. It's a one-note joke to have Bulma find this villain attractive, and then the villain is saying, "How gross! Get away from me, you creature!" General Blue pushes Bulma away. He's affronted by her flirting with him. And it's meant to be a joke. It's meant to be funny. But of course, this was written in the 80s, okay? So things were a little different back then. And so they might not be seen to be as funny as it would have been 40 years ago. So I can understand that. I found it funny, and I didn't find it offensive at all. You know, he's just General Blue. He's just, wow, get away from me, Bulma. You're doing something street creepy. That's fine. I had no problems with that. And then, after General Blue, we go to Penguin Village! Now, like I've said before, Toriyama drew Dr. Slump first, before he even drew a single page of Dragon Ball. He was already one of the most bankable mangaka in the entirety of Japan. He was up there with Tezuka Osamu. He was a big name. Dr. Slump was huge. I believe episode 4 of Dr. Slump remains to be one of the top 10 most viewed episodes in the history of Japanese anime on cable television. It was viewed by a third of Japan. Like a third of all TVs in Japan were on watching that episode when it first aired. That was crazy. Dr. Slump was a huge phenomenon in Japan, and I'm surprised it never broke out of Japan. But he does a crossover with Dr. Slump. General Blue is running off, having stolen the Dragon Balls. Goku's chasing after him, trying to get the Dragon Balls back. And they end up going to Penguin Village. It's just a couple chapters, but the tone of everything completely shifts. The sun has a face. Everything is so wacky and crazy. I loved every bit of it. Penguin Village looks so different. The way he draws his characters are so fundamentally different from how he would draw Dragon Ball NPCs and characters like that. Everybody looks so wacky and weird and wonderful that it got me interested in wanting to take a look at Dr. Slump, and I'm going to be taking a look at Dr. Slump after I took a look after that. You know, it was a fantastic little crossover bit. And so, that's another new environment that he would draw, another new thing that Goku went to. And after that, he goes to Korin Tower. And then Korin Tower has its own unique little background stint with the tower and in the distance and all the forest and all that stuff. That's really good. And then, of course, we have the Korin Tower, the mystical Korin Tower, and the joke of how Goku doesn't actually train with Korin, like martial arts, fighting punch. It's an abstract way of gaining power, much like how it was with Master Roshi, where Goku climbs the tower and he builds his stamina. He builds his strength by climbing the tower and trying to get the water from Korin. And by the time he finally got the water, he had already surpassed Korin in speed. That was the joke, is that by the time he finally got the water from Korin, he had already proved he was faster than Korin. And that was the whole point of trying to get the water from him. That was the whole point of Korin was what Korin was trying to teach Goku was an abstract thing. The water was tap water. It was a placebo. The training was trying to get it from him. And I loved that idea. I loved it. And of course, Goku goes back down, he takes out Tao Pai Pai, he gets revenge for Bora's death. The only thing that was a little bit weird in the anime was, Tao ends up climbing Korin Tower. There's a couple jokes, there's a lot of jokes in there that I really do find a lot of funny. I love the idea of a black, nimbus cloud, and that it was all under Korin's control, and I wonder if Toriyama got the illusion that Korin giving Tao Pai Pai the black nimbus. I wonder if Toriyama saw that episode or heard of that idea, or maybe even offered that idea to Toei to do that for their little filler segment in that episode, because by the King Piccolo arc, he would reveal that Korin was the one who gave Nimbus to Master Roshi. And he had access to a huge Nimbus cloud, and I loved that idea. I loved the illusion and thinking about that. I loved thinking about, was that what he wanted to do, well, he was going to do later on. I love to get into this guy's head and think about how he's writing his characters, where he's going with his characters, why he did this, why his characters said this, why they were doing this, and why they were doing that. Because we're having so many debates 20 to 30 years from now, for 20 to 30 years now, about so many pointless things that I stopped looking at it from like power level perspectives or what the character and universe was thinking, and I started thinking in the writer's head. I started thinking in Toriyama's head. I wanted to get into his head at that moment in time, because what he's thinking in 1987 may not be the same as what he says in an interview in 2006. You know, it's going to be completely different, honestly. So I tried to get into the moment, when I read these pages, and I get in the moment, try to see what he was doing with that, you know. And I find that process to be extremely fascinating to me. I find this guy's mind fascinating. And I love his dedication to vehicles. And every little novel, every one, I showed you the first one, right? It's in each and every one of these. He's got vehicles everywhere. He's got them everywhere. Here's another one. Look at that. That's a fantastic looking vehicle. That's the submarine that they use. There's not too many. They don't show all of them, obviously, all of the title cards, but they show some of them. Like this one. Here's another little vehicle. But I love that he does what he does, if that makes sense. I'm going off on a little bit of a tangent here. I'm trying to get back on track. After Penguin Village and Korin Tower, we have Goku take on the Red Ribbon Army HQ to get the final Dragon Balls from them. And there is some changes in the anime and the manga here, especially regarding the character of Colonel Violet. Now, like I mentioned in Superhero, Magenta has a picture of his father, Commander Red, on his desk. But he also has a picture of Colonel Violet on his desk. And I don't know if this is Toriyama's idea, or if this was Toei's idea, but color-wise, when you mix red and violet together, you get magenta. I found that to be very interesting, you know? And Violet's role in the anime is she's more of an animal lover. We get to see her loving on animals. She's not very fond of the actual Red Ribbon Army. She's just here to rob them, basically. She robs Commander Red of all of his money, puts it into an airship, and flies off while Goku's trying to take down the HQ. So she just leaves, and I loved that idea with her. I love doing that with her. The manga didn't do much with her at all. They just showed her showing up with a ball, and that's it. They didn't do anything else with her. But the anime really expands on her character, because they obviously have time to do that, because they have to fill out the episodes. You know, you gotta at least do a chapter an episode, or at least half of a chapter an episode. You can't just keep filling 2 to 3 chapters in a single episode. Otherwise, you're going to catch up to the manga. We can't do this. We have to fill out time. And normally they do that by expanding character roles. And I liked that idea with Violet. And I like the idea that maybe she and Red could have had a thing, because Red, during in the anime, Red is always favoring Violet. He's favoring her. He's saying she's a loyal soldier. She's the loyal one. She's the one following orders. She's gonna help us. And then she ends up robbing him. I wonder if Violet really is Magenta's mother. I really do. I really do wonder if that is the case. And if it is, maybe they had a thing prior to this, and she gave birth to Magenta and just left him with somebody in the organization, and she just left too. I have no idea. But I love that idea. I love thinking about it, and it's a good time. And then, of course, Agent Black, Assistant Black, his role is changed a little bit in the manga and anime, and I haven't mentioned too many dialogue changes. There are quite a bit. There's a lot of dialogue changes, mostly perverted stuff. Most of the perverted jokes get changed into less lighthearted stuff, but there are some dub changes that are a little bit strange. For example, in the General Blue part, where Goku and everybody are running from General Blue's minions, Goku stops and says, "Hey, why don't we talk to them?" He says this in the English dub. He says, "Why don't we go talk to them? I could go talk to them." And Krillin says, "These aren't the kind of people you could talk to." And then Goku says, "Oh, no, I've talked to them before." And, of course, if you change it to Japanese language and put on subtitles, Goku says, "I'm gonna go beat him up." And that's not offensive. It's obviously what he's done before. He's beaten him up. There's nothing perverted about saying that. There's no bad words in it. He just says, "I'm gonna go beat him up." And they changed that. They changed it. I don't know why they did that in that episode, but they changed it multiple times in that episode, too. And there's one thing that they did not change that was left in for both Japanese language and English language, is the joke that was in the manga, where General Blue finds one of his soldiers, all of his soldiers run through this booby trap hallway, and they all die. And General Blue comes up, he sees all of his men have all been skewered, and one of them reports that there are no survivors. I loved that. I love that, and I love that they kept that in. That's a glorious joke. I do miss this. I do. I miss the jokes. I miss the jokes, the gags, the lighthearted humor. A lot of it could be potty humor. A lot of it is Master Roshi getting his comeuppance. But I loved this type of humor, jokes, and all of that stuff combined with serious tones. Is what Toriyama knew how to do. Is he knew how to compose light-hearted environments, but he also knew how to compose serious tone. And it could usually be in the way he draws. In the way he draws his characters, in the way he gives characters shadings during certain serious moments where you read it and you see how the serious artwork is there and you pay more attention to it that way. Versus where the characters might have a big head and a small body and you don't take that as seriously. Maybe they're not as drawn, as detailed, and maybe you don't take that as seriously. I loved his attention to detail with that because it made Bora's death at Karin Tower all the more serious, all the more impactful. And the anime kept that serious tone in as well. Kikuchi's score works perfectly for Dragon Ball. I am a big fan of the Falconer score. I grew up on it, after all. I love most of the themes. The Super Saiyan 3 theme, Vegeta's Hell's Bells, it's all fantastic. But Kikuchi's score, he knows what themes to play for a certain thing, and he knows when to have it silent. And the team using his music, because later on in Z, Kikuchi wasn't making music for Dragon Ball Z anymore. He's only doing it for the movies. So all of the movies' soundtracks is what you would be hearing in the actual anime. Any new themes were coming from the movies. So he probably wasn't aware of what was being used for what, but the team using his music, the sound team, the music team, editing all of this sound in, they knew when to keep a moment silent, when there's no music at all, where the sound effects of the birds in the trees, or the wind blowing, and the people walking, and the ground crumbling as they're stepping on things, the sound effects are good. Everything gets blown up when the music stops, and that really made a lot of scenes that otherwise wouldn't feel as impactful to be impactful, if that makes sense. And obviously, when you put music in for certain moments, it really changes how that scene feels. For example, when Bora gets brought back to life and Upa gets to hug his father again, that music is really impactful and really good. I really loved that one. When Gohan removes his mask and Goku runs up and they get reunited, that music is really good. Speaking of music, let's talk about insert songs. I found Mezase Tenkaichi in the 21st Budokai. I talked about that one. But there's a bunch of them in the Red Ribbon Army arc, and a bunch of them was shown in very rapid succession in the second half of the arc. There is an insert song that plays when Goku is assaulting the Red Ribbon Army HQ. That theme plays. There's a theme that plays when Bulma is explaining to Grandpa Gohan about the Dragon Balls and Goku finding them in all of their adventures. They show a montage with an insert song. And then, of course, when Goku is flying on Nimbus with Upa back to Karin Tower to bring his father back, another insert song plays. And I really liked all of those. And, of course, like I've said it before, the English dub kept these songs in, but they muted the tones. They muted the tones so you could barely hear them, and they had people talk over them. I don't know why they did this, but for those specific moments, I just swapped to the Japanese so I could hear the song, because they just let the song play, and I preferred that over having people talk over it. I want to hear the insert song, you know? There's a bunch of them in there. But those were the three I found. and I turned on to listen to it in full detail. You can find almost all these insert songs on YouTube. You can find them all online. You can listen to them, enjoy them. I definitely recommend Masaase Tenkaichi, especially. And then there's the Soldier Red Ribbon one. That's a very good one. That's definitely one you want to listen to. And especially when you listen to that one, and listen to, like, the instrumentals of the Red Ribbon Army arc. Listen to, like, the horns and the brass, and tell me if that doesn't remind you of James Bond 007, like the Roger Moore and the Sean Connery era, especially. And tell me if you don't think that all of the Red Ribbon Army generals, villains, all of those guys are ripped from 007. Like Commander Red and Blofeld. It's the exact same thing. In the anime especially, they show him petting a cat with just his torso. They don't show his face. He's petting the cat. In a lot of the scenes, we don't see his head in the early parts. That's a Blofeld thing, man. And of course, we have a lot of the big names: General Blue, General White, Colonel Silver. A bunch of these guys remind you of other Bond villains. Like I've said, Toriyama is a big movie buff. He's a big fan of American cinema. He's a big fan of James Bond. He's a big fan of science fiction, Alien, Predator. He's a big fan of Terminator, especially. And obviously, there's a Terminator reference in Muscle Tower. The big, what's his name? I keep forgetting his name. Major Metallic. He's basically the Terminator. He even looks like Arnold Schwarzenegger. His face does. So he's got movie references and vehicles and race cars and everything all over the place. And I love that he gets just to have the freedom to do that whenever he feels like it. I loved it. It was a fantastic thing. This was a fantastic arc. And obviously it's 41 minutes long, and I'm still enthusiastically talking about this arc. That just goes to show you how interested I was getting to rewatch this again. And of course, I want to talk about some more of the filler and the differences in that, because a lot of this filler I was seeing for the very first time. After Goku brings Ubora back to life, and he goes off after Roshi tells him to go live life for the next 3 years. In the manga, we just skip directly to the 22nd World Martial Arts Tournament. But in the anime, we have a 5-episode mini arc, mostly one-off. They're all one-off episodes of Goku going to various different places in various different villages to see various different people and solve various different problems. And most of these stories I loved. I loved them. One of them is Goku going to this castle. The princess has been kidnapped by a demon lord, and Goku has to go to a mirror dimension and fight the demon lord Shula to rescue the princess. He meets the gatekeepers who help him fight against the Lord Shula to get the princess, rescue her, get him out of that dimension and back into the human world. And the gatekeepers help him to do that. Why? Because the gatekeepers believe that the door between the demon realm and the human realm shouldn't be left open like the demon lord has done. So it was a fantastic story, and the designs for all of the characters, Lord Shula, the gatekeepers, it was all fantastic. It felt like a movie script, like this could have been originally designed as a Dragon Ball movie, but it got repurposed to be an episode instead. I miss when filler was like this. I remember a bunch of filler in Z, and it would get very lazy. And we're going to talk about Garlic Jr. We're going to talk about that. I know a lot of people hate that. I know a lot of people hate the Garlic Jr. arc. I do. I loved it. I'm sorry. I loved it. Dead Zone is one of my all-time favorite Dragon Ball Z movies. It's got some of the best artwork, it's got some of the best fighting choreography and animation, it's got Goku fighting with the power pole, adult Goku fighting with it. It's got so much good stuff going for it. And I would not have been surprised if Koyama Takao came up with a script for a sequel to the Dead Zone, for its own separate movie. I would not have been surprised if he did this. But it was not approved to be its own movie for quite some time. But that script, that story would stay laying around, right? And so, by the time of Goku versus Frieza, I've said this before in another video, the manga and the anime were at their closest in points together. Like, they were within like a handful of chapters of catching up. And they were extending Goku versus Frieza out by so many episodes to try to let the manga get ahead, because the manga was a weekly thing, the anime was a weekly thing. They were trying to broaden the gap, but they had to do more and more filler, cutting to characters, cutting to other things to extend this fight so that the 5 minutes became 5 hours. It was nuts. It was nuts. So of course, this sequel to Dead Zone, this movie script, had to have been lying around. It must have been Takao Koyama's idea. It must have been his idea, right? That this script for a sequel to Dead Zone for a movie be an idea, be a future thing. But they realized they needed to put it into the anime. They needed to just throw it in here. They needed to extend it. They needed to make it 10 episodes instead of a 3-episode length special. Because I honestly think if you condensed the Garlic Jr. Returns arc into a 3-episode special and then make it a movie, it would have been fine. It would have been fine. I definitely think it would have been. But as it stands, Icarus. Like I said, there's another thing. Icarus has been in Tree of Life, Lord Slug, and Cooler's Revenge. Those are 3, 4, and 5. The third, 4th, and 5th movies, which makes me believe that the Garlic Jr. arc was going to be the 6th movie. The Garlic Jr. Dead Zone 2, the second sequel. I honestly believe that was going to be the 6th movie after Cooler. I believe that. I genuinely do. That it was going to be the 6th movie, but it got repurposed into the anime itself, because this is the last time we see Icarus. Icarus isn't in Cooler Returns, it's not in, Icarus isn't in Super Android 13, or any of his next movies, but Gohan and Icarus were a thing in the past 3 movies. I honestly think this was going to be the 6th movie. I genuinely do. Now, I just went off on a tangent again. That's what I do. I do tangents. I try to keep it all about Red Ribbon, but that's what I get for just rambling on about something I love and all that stuff, But then we get to the Baba tournament arc, and we have another scene change. We have another climate change. It's now a desert, but we have an oasis. We have new character designs. We introduce the character of Baba, which honestly is one of my favorite characters. Toriyama is amazing at introducing unique and interesting characters, but his problem is maintaining them after their presence. They stick around, but he has no idea what to do with them. That's a problem that we're going to get with Tien and Yamcha, with Tien Chaozu. Yamcha's already struggling with this. He's struggling for relevancy, and we're still in his relevancy right now. Yamcha finally returns in an actual leading role for the Baba arc. And he hasn't had a leading role for the entirety of the Red Ribbon arc up until now, so he finally gets something to do. And he finally does beat one of Baba's members, the Invisible Man. And in terms of superior fighting strength, Yamcha is genuinely superior to the Invisible Man. The only reason he would have lost is because the Invisible Man is invisible, and Baba was singing so that Yamcha couldn't hear the Invisible Man's movements. So it was kind of a little bit of an unfair advantage against him. But Yamcha was genuinely superior to a character for once. I love when Yamcha gets to do things. He is the underdog, and I love this character. So he got to be the Invisible Man. Krillin loses immediately, and that's something I want to bring up, is that Krillin had a very strong introduction in the 21st World Martial Arts Tournament, and we get to see that Goku and Krillin were very similar in strength. Goku had a little bit of a lead, but not too big of a lead. And then we eventually get to see that that lead is just generally bigger and bigger and bigger without even any training. Even before Goku trains with Korin, he has already far surpassed Krillin without any training at all. He's just naturally so superior. Krillin gets beat up by General Blue. Goku immediately takes out General Blue. It is fascinating, to say the least. And then we get to the Baba arc, where Yamcha is performing better than Krillin. Krillin fights the vampire, Fangs the vampire, and he loses immediately. And then with the teamwork of Upa and Poir, which I absolutely love this. I absolutely love using characters that don't fight to use smart tactics and shapeshifting. And I loved this. This is what I brought up in the Pilaf arc. Is what I loved about using the shapeshifters for interesting ideas, interesting things without relating to fighting, but using tactics. Use your characters who don't fight for other important and interesting ways. And I liked that. I liked using that for that, and they took care of Fangs the vampire. Yamcha took out the Invisible Man with Krillin and Bulma's thing. And that's one thing that I do want to bring up. I don't know if I should bring it up, but the English version of the Viz Medias, they censor what Krillin does to make Roshi nosebleed onto the Invisible Man to make him visible so that Yamcha could beat him. In the anime, they don't censor it. That's right. They don't censor it. I'm not gonna say what it is. I'm just gonna say that they don't censor it. It's a single frame. If you want to go look for it, go for it. I'm not gonna tell you what it is. Then, of course, Yamcha faces off against the Mummy for the third fight. And in the anime, they kind of blow him out of proportions. I don't really like this. I don't like blowing him out of proportions like this. I do like that they extended the fight a little bit to show you how Yamcha is very tough and that he could take a lot of beating from the Mummy. But after that, when Goku fights the Mummy, the way he handles the Mummy in the manga versus the anime is very different. Goku actually struggles for a little bit in the anime before he takes the Mummy out very quickly. Because he takes the Mummy out very quickly in the manga. But of course, they have to extend it. They extend everything in the anime. This is one of those things I don't think you should have extended. I think you should have made that a little bit of a quick thing. I think you should have made Yamcha bit of a better fight, maybe. I don't know, but having Goku struggle against the Mummy kind of dampens just how worlds ahead of Yamcha Goku has become. How worlds ahead of Roshi Goku has become. But then, by the time he beats them, and we get to Devilman. Devilman, in terms of English and Japanese dub, there's a lot of differences between the Devil Might Beam. In English, the Devil Might Beam is an evil beam. It's the evil person does it to amplify evil, when in reality, in the Japanese dub, it is not evil, it's just terrifying. It's a terrifying idea, because it brings up the fact that every person, as good as you try to be, you might harbor negative thoughts in your head. The Devil Might Beam amplifies that negativity until you are consumed by your own negativity and you are killed. This comes back to the Nimbus Cloud, in my opinion. It goes back to that, is that Roshi, Bulma, Krillin, they can't ride Nimbus. They don't have pure hearts. Goku can ride Nimbus. And that tells me that somebody with a pure heart can survive the Devil Might Beam, and so Goku survives the Devil Might Beam through his innocence, his pure innocence. And of course, I love how Goku is very stupid in a lot of these lines. Even in the English dub, it's very funny. Devilman says, "You must be either brave or stupid." And Goku says, "I'm not either of those guys. I'm Goku." I loved it. It was hilarious. It was very funny. And, of course, the fight with Gohan was one of the most emotional and impactful moments in the entire franchise to me. And, of course, they extend the Pilaf bits. That's funny. I love that. Keep that alive. Keep that by itself. That's fine. And then, of course, bringing Bora back to life. It's all good. The filler segments are also fantastic. Like, I got off on the Dead Zone tangent, but there's another episode, a couple of them, in the filler segment after Bora gets brought back to life. There's one where Goku goes to a village, and there's these two biker guys called Terror and War or something. and they have this gourd where if you uncork the gourd and people call out your name, and if you don't respond, the gourd will suck you in like a little mist, like a mist comes out of the gourd and sucks you into the gourd. It's very mystical, and I love that idea. There's another one where Goku visits a small village where there's these two rival martial arts schools, and one of them is a sickly old man, but he's a master of a very interesting martial art, and Goku learns this technique, and he represents this martial arts school to beat this other martial arts school. I loved that idea. I loved this giving you the impression that Goku was going off to all of these villages and towns and learning techniques from other masters and building onto his own moveset, so that when he finally returns for the 22nd World Martial Arts Tournament, he utilizes everything that he has learned from all of these other masters, incorporating it into his own moveset, which I thought was very cool. I honestly would not have been opposed to making a complete maybe 10 to 15 filler episode arc between the Red Ribbon Army arc and the 22nd World Martial Arts Tournament arc, where we see Goku going off on even more adventures, maybe meeting other friends and showing off some other stuff. That would have been a very interesting little thing there, because a lot of these episodes I feel were very strong. They were very strong filler episodes, and filler gets a bad rap. It really does. A lot of people don't remember a lot of filler, unless it's really bad. But this one is one of the really good ones, so definitely give that a look. And that concludes our Red Ribbon Army look-through. I'm not going to show you all of the vehicles in all of these manga novels, but I will mention a couple of them, because it's just something I want to emphasize, is that Toriyama loves vehicles. Look at this. He's got numbers. Maybe he numbers all of his vehicles like this. This might be the 341st vehicle he's drawn, and that maybe he's got a bunch of other vehicles that he's drawn that have different numbers on them, maybe. It's just very interesting how he does a lot of this stuff. There's not too many vehicles on this. There's one here. That's mainly just the number here. And that's one thing I definitely do want to mention with this. In Japan, there is no Dragon Ball Z manga, which is why when you look on the artwork in the Dragon Ball Z manga in America, 1 to 24, Volume 1 is going to have the number 17 somewhere on the artwork, and it's going to go up to 42. And they're going to show you that here somewhere. Where is it? Just give you a moment here. Here. They're going to show you right here on this title page here. They're going to say Volume 8, DB8 of 42. So even in English, if you're going to see a Dragon Ball Z manga, the inner page is going to say like 24 out of 42 or something like that. Which I thought was pretty funny. It's something I wanted to add at the end of this. Either way, that's the Red Ribbon Army arc. It's by far the absolute longest arc in the entirety of early Dragon Ball, OG Dragon Ball, and of course it's going to be my longest video in the OG Dragon Ball breakdown. So this is almost an hour long. This is something that I would say watch when you have time, maybe watch in increments. I don't expect anybody to watch the entire thing in a single sitting, but if you have, thank you. But that's all I got.